All right, this is Ubaid on behalf of Electronics, and in this video, we'll talk about government spending with reference to fiscal policies. All right, now, when it comes to government spending, before we talk about government spending, let's talk about a few terms that are relevant to government spending. Okay, so starting off with your budget deficit. Okay, now obviously, government receives money in terms of taxes. If this money from taxes is less than what they spent on various categories that we're going to talk about, okay, this will be a budget deficit. Okay, this is if money or revenue earned by the government in taxes, revenue earned by the government in taxes is less. Okay, then government spending. Okay, that would be a budget deficit. The next one is budget surplus. Now, budget surplus happens when the revenue earned by the government in taxes is more than government spending. So if there's a surplus of revenue, say revenue earned by the government, revenue earned by the government is more, this is more than government spending. All right, so if revenue earned by the government is more than government spending, this will be a surplus, just like any other surplus, where if you make more revenue than your expenses, you have a surplus. Now, apart from these two, you also have a balanced budget. Okay, so a balanced budget is sort of like your equilibrium point, and this is when your spending and taxes or earnings and spending expenditure is the same. Okay, so this is your balanced surplus. Okay, so revenue, this is in terms of taxes received, the taxes, okay, is equal to, you can say expenses or spending over here, government spending. And we're going to talk about the different categories when it comes to government spending. Now, in most countries, the government spending has roughly the same categories. All right, so government spending, when it comes to government spending, the four major categories in most countries, okay, this would be national defense. So this has to do with things like military, security, so on and so forth. So national defense. The second would be interest payments. So interest payments on loans, for example. So debt. Okay, the third one will be healthcare, for example. So healthcare. And we know that the government may spend money on hospitals, and hospitals do have expensive medical equipment, they hire staff, okay, so on and so forth. So healthcare in general is expensive, probably more expensive than education. So you have healthcare. And finally, you have transfer payments, which we talked about earlier, which had to do with your GDP or aggregate demand. In this case, we're talking about social security payments. So things like your old age security, welfare payments, so on and so forth. So social security payments. All right, now these are the four major categories. Apart from these categories, you do have other categories as well, other categories that are allocated as far as the government spending is concerned. Okay, so these categories include but not limited to transportation, for example. So we're talking about highways and roads. Okay, it covers natural resources and environment. Okay, so parks and trails, for example. All right, it covers housing, education, okay, law enforcement, okay, regional development, and the administrative cost of running the government. So admin expenses. So law enforcement. And admin expenses. Okay, so these are the categories that the government spends their money on. And much of the government earnings are from taxes. Okay, so when it comes to all these categories, okay, some categories obviously have a bigger allocation, so to speak, on a chart or a graph. Okay, and this has to do with national defense, interest payments, healthcare, and social security payments. So, for example, okay, in some countries such as the US, okay, the national defense may have the highest allocation, okay, the highest spending. Okay, then you have, okay, social security payments, the social security payments, okay, okay, then you have, okay, interest maybe, so interest. And next you have your healthcare, for example. So this is healthcare. All right. So this is how the government allocates, okay, the money it earns from taxes, the revenue it earns from taxes. Okay, that would be it for this video as far as fiscal policies are concerned. On behalf of Electronics, this is Obey. Have yourself a great day.